Hey guys, welcome back. All the fun stuff. Yeah, it's been a week, I'm sure. I don't know. I just got finished filming Mondays and I'm going to continue on because, as I said in that one, I was planning on doing these things combined, but I think this is going to take way too long. So I wanted to chat mysteries because mysteries. So ever since Nancy Drew, when I was a kid, I actually learned to read with Nancy Drew. I learned how to sew because of Nancy Drew. Nancy Drew was a big part of my childhood. And then, there were the Meg Duncan mysteries and the Trixie Beldens and the Hardy Boys and what else did I read? Ken Holt. Read a lot of mysteries. And then I went into more suspensey kind of stuff with Phyllis A. Whitney. And then, I don't remember what came after that, but I've always been big and strong on mysteries. I started looking at it and I started noticing that, number one, I don't actually read a lot of cozy mysteries. I have a couple of series that lean toward cozy, and some would consider cozy. Others, they consider it cozy, and I do not. And that's kind of interesting. But, for cozy, you really usually are going to need an amateur sleuth, which many mysteries, cozy or not, have. A small town is pretty common, almost always, not quite, but almost always. And then some sort of hobby, baking, gardening, knitting, quilting, something-ing, I mean, people, there's usually something like that, or a like sidekick animal. You've got cats doing things and whatever. So, I mean, there's that kind of thing, but they're usually very, for lack of a better word, innocuous in that the sleuths don't really get into much danger. They're just figuring stuff out. There's no on-page, you're not seeing someone killed, that kind of thing. And even stumbling across a dead body, it's usually not a violent. If the sleuth actually stumbles across the actual body, it's usually not a violent death. That's not a given, but it tends to be. And I realize that I don't read many of those. There are some, that's one of the reasons I didn't put that on this list. The Mary Allingham, Flora Steele mysteries, I would say, are probably mostly cozy. Mostly. They do get into some more, life or death kind of moments that it's a little stronger than you see in most cozies. But on the other hand, some people consider Miss Marples to be cozies, and I absolutely don't. They're more classic mysteries from the Golden Age, and just because she's from a small village and knits doesn't make her, for one thing, we don't get much of her. So yeah, she's an amateur sleuth, but she just comes in, explains human nature, which gives away the killer, and we're done. So I mean, it's like, doesn't really fit the cozy, but a lot of people consider her cozy. So I'm putting that out there just to say, just because I say something is or isn't cozy doesn't mean I'm right. It's just how my brain processes it. So I went through some of my favorite series, and I noticed that they fit in different levels, and none of these I would consider straight up cozies. But they're pretty cool. And the first one I want to talk about is the Maisie Dobbs series. So these are kind of an intro into the mind, maybe, of a detective, because they start off, Maisie was the housemaid in a house. The people there really loved her, and so they kind of semi-adopted her, in the sense that they gave her a good education, and they did a lot for her. They treated her like family rather than just this kid, because they could see the potential in her. And so she goes off to school, and then she is trained by this guy. So she ends up becoming a detective, but she's also a psychologist. And so she thinks through things psychologically, and she has It's a very different approach. One of the things that I really find interesting, you know how you get to the end of many mysteries and it's, gather everyone in the room and lay out the whole thing all together, and that way you've got all the pieces and everybody gets to see. Well, she doesn't really do that. Jacqueline Winspear has Maisie, I can't remember, I want to call it a post-mortem, and it's not what she calls it, but she has this thing when she's done with a case and she's got the file all wrapped up. She goes point by point, she goes around and really looks at everything and thinks through all the processes that she went through to get the information and all the effects that it had on her, and it gives the reader anything that they might have missed. But it also shows her thinking process, and it shows kind of the thinking processes of those around it and what she thinks there was, involved in everything. And it starts pre-World War I and goes through World War II. I think I've read them all. I should make sure that I have actually. I've got the page open here. There are quite a few. Yeah, there are 18 Maisie Dobbs books, and they are really, really good. I don't love them all equally. It's classic mystery meets human psychologies, and I like the way it gets you thinking. They're very well narrated. They're wonderful to listen to. I will probably go through and listen to them all again. It's been long enough that I think I could get away with it without knowing for sure who did what and everything. I know that some of them were ones that I didn't figure things out until near the end when everybody would. So they're a little more complicated. And on the other hand, usually when I did figure out the who, I couldn't figure out the why or the wherefore and all that good stuff. So it was really cool. And then next to that is what I would consider a straight up mystery series. I could see this being on one of the Acorn, BBC, whatever series where you have all these Midsummer. To me, this is like a Midsummer Murders. As a matter of fact, Neil Dudgeon, who is the guy that takes over for his Uncle John, I don't remember his name, Inspector Barnaby, but I don't remember his first name. His uncle was John, I'm pretty sure. I don't know what this guy's name is. Anyway, he's the narrator for the series. And it's amazing because I shouldn't like him as a narrator. He does a terrible woman. Women sound screechy and squawky and just the worst falsetto ever. And but he does a fabulous cop from Brooklyn. So we have two major characters in here. What can I just say up front? I'm at number 49 or something. I don't know, whatever the last one was, 49.50, something like that. And we're talking 10, 12 years of personal relationship between these two characters, and it's never gone romantic. And I'm just so glad about that on the one hand. On the other hand, because it has spread out so long, if they did, I wouldn't feel like, oh, great, we've just gone castle. I mean, this was yes. So we have Jack, who used to be an NYCPD homicide detective. He retired to Cherringham, and he lives on, one of those barge boats, on the Thames. I'm pretty sure it's on the Thames. And with his dog, I can't remember the dog's name all of a sudden. Anyway, he lives with his dog, Riley. Dog Riley. And next door to this guy who is kind of the local druggie and miscreant, and yet an innocuous one. He's not constantly doing illegal things that affect other people, just himself. And then he makes friends with Sarah, who is a graphic designer and runs a place that, does websites for different companies. And so she knows computers, he knows investigation, and they get together and start solving all these little things. Sometimes it's murder, sometimes it's a theft, sometimes it's arson. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that they work on and solve. And the mysteries are so good. They're very short. If you like short mysteries, these are the ones. They're just a couple, 2-3 hours, I think, of listening. I don't think any of them have been 4. I'm pretty sure none of them have even made it to 4 hours. Most of them are over 2, definitely under 4. And it's just, they're so good. Sarah has 2 kids, and those kids grow up through the series, which has been really fun to watch. And just the whole thing. I love how much this last one was so good. Was it the last one? I'm pretty sure it was, with the town charter, and it gets stolen, and there's this anti-history group. They're against history. So they want to tear down all historical things. And the arguments that are made are just the most ridiculous things you've ever heard. And you're just like, what is wrong with you people? It was so good how Jack handled it with history. Just totally nailed all the things. It was just so good. And then, of course, there's a whole lot more I can't tell you because that would totally spoil it, right? But the series itself, they're good. It's rare that you'll find any language in it. There's never any smut. There have been a couple of times that you've known that things happened with other things that weren't savory, but we're not treated to an on-page description. We're given the information we need for the story, but not just for shock value or to, in TV they would say get ratings, right? So if it's in there, it has a purpose. Rarely is that purpose to use foul language, which I appreciate. Once in a while, there'll be some, but it's really, really rare. Way less than you will find in, say, Mrs. Polifax. So that, I consider those to be, this is still dirty. I still consider those to be just straight up mystery. It's just mystery. And they are contemporary. For historical, you can go, there are 2. So there's the Heathcliff Lennox series by Karen Baum Menuhin. These take place mostly in the 20s. And he is a guy, he has quite a bit of money. He has his, valet and his dog, and he would definitely be a grumpy. He ends up investigating things a little against his will often, and mostly, it starts off mostly just to save his own skin, because there's this inspector that he's like, I've got to do something or I'm going to be strung up for murder because this guy thinks it's me. And it just kind of spreads from there. They develop a really cool friendship, and they solve these different cases across England. And his name is Heathcliff Lennox. He hates his name. Just hates his name. And there's just this lovely cast of characters that you just kind of can't help but love. And connected to them are the Miss Busby mysteries, where she's an older lady in a village, and she interacted with him once, and so then there's been this spin-off series, and those have been really good. But these are just, they feel a lot like what you might have read, Marjorie Allingham, or there's Inspector Allen, and then there's Campion, and I don't remember which one Allingham wrote, but they feel like some of those things, like almost a darker. If you took like Jeeves and Wooster, and you made them just a little darker, not dark, but just darker, because those are lighthearted and fluffy, right? Made them a little darker and made them mysteries. It feels like it might be a little like that. I don't know how else to put it, and then the Miss Busbys it's almost like Miss Marple in the 20s, if she actually had a lot of on-page stuff. She has her friends, and they're very they're very interactive. And I gotta say, guys, there's a lot of these that I'm leaving a lot out. I'm leaving out the Beryl and Edwina mysteries. I'm leaving out just a lot. I was trying to go for my favorites and showing this kind of interesting progression and things that I love. So if you love 1920s and more golden age feelishness, I would say this starts that. But what really jumps into those are the Benedict Brown, Lord Edgington, and Marius Quinn. Now there's 3 series in this one little grouping here. There are 3 series. There's the Lord Edgington Investigates, which is what kicks all this off. Then there is the Marius Quinn, who you meet in one of those Lord Edgington Investigates, and Marius and a friend of his end up investigating things. And occasionally Lord Edgington gets brought into those, And then the Lord Edgington Investigates Abroad, where they leave England and they go into the rest of the Europe, and we're starting to see stuff like, I'm starting to see little hints of what might be coming with as we edge closer to World War II. So I think he's showing just a little, but I'm not sure. I'm like, is it just because I know the history of the time enough that it's clicking, or is he trying to lead us there? I don't know. So Lord Edgington was the second son. Okay, Lord Edgington was the second son of a Viscount. And so as second son, he doesn't inherit, so he became an inspector with Scotland Yard and was known to be like the best of the best. And you kind of get that from the way he talks. He is a pompous man, and yet he's endearing anyway. He's just so like prideful and arrogant on the one hand that I shouldn't like him. But on the other hand, his heart is to serve and to find it and to bring people to justice. And yet he's got a bit of compassion for people who have made mistakes in the past and they are trying to do something different. There's one part where someone that he had arrested way back when, it comes into the picture again, and he ends up hiring her. And, and here she is doing things wrong again. And instead of, sending her off to jail again, he's like, no, you're going to come work for me. And she becomes like the most loyal thing on the planet. It's just really sweet. Anyway, we have him. His older brother dies. So now he's the Viscount again. So he has to leave his job and go home. And so all of that happened before the story begins. Well, not all of that. The thing with the criminal that he hires, that happens in the series. But anyway, but the whole thing with the Viscount and all that stuff, all that happens before the story. Actually, before the story, his wife has died. A year or 2 or 3 before. I don't remember. But when she died, he kind of withdrew into himself. So the very first one, Murder at the Spring Ball, he decides that he's done. He's not going to keep doing this. He's going to come out of his depression. He's going to drag himself out of his depression is really what he's going to do. He decides he's going to throw this spring ball, and he brings his grandson Christopher in to help him. Christopher, bless him, is 17, awkward, a little chubby, not the world's best student, but he loves to read. And he gets put in charge of doing the spring ball. So he goes and orders enough flowers for 100 spring balls. And that's probably not an exaggeration. Yeah. So he orders a field of daffodils or something. I mean, it's an obscene amount of flowers because he doesn't know what he's doing. And, he has to learn, right? So we kind of get they did a good job of showing his heart and how his heart and his mind aren't always aligned with reality. And you get him thrown in, and then of course there's obviously a murder that they have to solve, and something about it draws Lord Edgington in, and he decides he's going to train his grandson to be a detective. And his grandson is just like, I don't have the skills for this. There's no way that this is going to work. But he does. And every single book, I'm telling you, Brown is brilliant with this. Because every single book, Christopher gets better. And yet, he's still a kid. So he's not just becoming this prodigy overnight, and yet he's not growing. He's maturing slowly. He's seeing things. And yet he's not becoming jaded, and yet he's not being as shocked. Somehow he's like landing in a compassionate middle, really. And you're just watching. It is so good. And I don't know where Brown came up with this. I don't know what he's doing that is so well done, but it is, and it's a blast. So now Christopher he's 21, 22, something like that. And, we start the Lord Edgington Investigates Abroad. And so now Christopher has actually had a couple times where he has been the one to solve the case. And so you're expecting more out of him now, and he's delivering without over-delivering and turning him into, just Superman, right? So there's that. But I would put these in solidly. They remind me of those Golden Age mysteries solidly. They were designed to. And I love them so much. But they're just straight up mysteries. They're not cozy. They're not like typical detective fiction, and yet they are. I mean, Lord Edgington was an investigator. He was a detective. So they are, even where they aren't. And it's a really cool combination. I really like it. I know Benedict Brown has a contemporary mystery series that I have not read. And the only reason I haven't read them is because they aren't on audio yet, and I do love to listen to mysteries. But at some point, I know I will be going, yes, I'm doing this now. Now I'm doing this. And so, there's that. But after him, I would go to... I want to call these cozies, because I feel like these... of all the ones on this list, I feel like these are the closest to cozies. But not quite. So the Lady Hardcastle mysteries by T.E. Kinsey, they are brilliant. I loved them so much. It just like Lord Edgington, I don't ever want the series to stop. I want more. Give me more. I want all the moreness. So, Lady Hardcastle, but these really are the closest to an actual cozy. Again, you're usually in their small village area, and they are amateurs, and yet they're not. See, this is where it doesn't quite fit, and where it starts edging into some of these other ones that are coming. So we have Lady Hardcastle. She is wealthy, and they have moved to the country, and with her lady's maid Flo. Now Florence Flo grew up in the circus. She's Welsh, and she's sassy with Lady Hardcastle, and they're not like others for the whole time period, because she gets away with saying some pretty snarky stuff to her boss, and her boss loves it. But it works for a reason. They're not like other people, just to be that and to have something different. They have a story behind it that makes it work. And I think this is what too many authors don't do. Once upon a time, Lady Hardcastle's husband was an ambassador. She was there with him in places. She worked for the home... What's it called? The home office. And so she was like kind of like a spy for England while her husband was an ambassador. And they got into some harrowing scrapes once upon a time. And we get to hear about them now and then. It'll come up and they will tell a story. But for the most part, it's all, backstory that they share. We don't actually get to live that with them, but they were spies. They had to escape across the deserts of China to get home. I mean, we're talking, they've done some seriously amazing stuff for women of the time because they had to. And, Flo, being from the circus, she knows how to throw knives. And so she's got some skills there. They have skills that women of their era wouldn't have, except for what they were doing at the time and how that played out. So because of that, and how occasionally it ties in with the whole home office thing, they're cozy, but with a nod to like the spy side of things, even though most of the time we are just solving a mystery. That's it. But once in a while there's something that creeps in that is like, so it's really kind of cool how they're doing it. I really like it. But again, it's whatever. They're funny. They're told in first person from Flo's perspective. I don't usually like first person, but these are brilliant and I love them. So just putting that out there. They're a whole lot of fun if you haven't read them. I think the first one you can listen to on audio free if you have an Audible account, I think. Or it used to be. That's how I listened to it the first time. I was able to listen free for the first one. And several of these do that. Just throwing that out there. But anyway, that starts leading us into what I saw as like a thread, because then we get to the Homefront Sleuths, which starts with the Blackout Murders. And in this one, we have this village of Crofters Green, and this gal Evelyn, she comes home to take over her grandmother's tea room in Crofters Green. She has been with the SOE, and she did spy work in France until things went south and she had to come home, and grandma died. So she decides she's just going to move to Crofters Green, and she's just going to, live a nice quiet life there and just be done with this. Her husband is dead. Life is, tough, and she's recuperating. I believe at that time she had this broken ankle, and so she was still recovering from it when she first got there. All the things, right? But of course, that is the Blackout Murders. Murder happens, and then another one happens, and what's going on. And then she gets a note from someone that terrifies her, because this note comes from someone they were afraid of while she was working with the resistance in France. And so this guy has found her, and this is scary. So you're dealing with solving murders that otherwise they're almost cozy, but not. I think this one calls itself a cozy series on Amazon if you look at it. But I'm sorry, these people get into really intense situations that those authors almost make me believe somebody's going to die. I will not be surprised if by the end of this series, one of these sleuths has died, because of how much they're willing to put these people through. They're put through terrible situations that are way too strong and hard for a traditional cozy. And it's realistic and it's good, but it's never too much. They know just where to pull it. It's so impressive. So you have Evie, and then you have Dorothy, who works for Evie in her tea room. And Dorothy has a son and a husband and a mother. And the husband has been injured. He's in a hospital in London. And then eventually he comes home and he does the things, right? The mother is bedridden with rheumatoid arthritis. The son is just a son. It's all the fun, the stuffness. And then, so she's part of this group of sleuths. Then there's Harry. He was an inspector in London for Scotland Yard, and he knows what he knows. But he has retired here to Crofters Green to be near his nephew, who is a detective there in Crofters Green, Nigel. And so he ends up kind of helping with Nigel. The police were really suffering from a lack of people at this time because everybody is off fighting the war. And this is early on in the war. I think this was like 39 when it starts. They've done a very good job of spreading it across the years. We're only in like 1942 and we're 11, 12 books in, 10, 11, 12, something like that. So I'm hoping they go through the whole war. Anyway, and then, so we've got Harry, we've got Nigel, who is the police officer. We have Mr. Blake, who was injured in the war, and he is now teaching at the school in town, and he's really good with numbers and patterns and ciphers, and really bad with people. And bless him, he wants to be good with people, he just doesn't understand them. And so there's him. Then there's Alice. She is an herbalist in town. She is highly educated. She taught school for a while. She's just a lovely lady. And everybody brings something that they have, that they know, into this. Is there anyone else who is, well, there's someone that I can't mention who is involved. Yeah. There's someone I can't mention, but there's just this group, and we get all of their perspectives. And the best part of these is that because we're getting all their perspectives, we're seeing a bigger picture than each individual is. Even when they get together and talk about things, they don't know what they need to share. So we're getting what Alice saw when she looked at this thing, and we're getting all the stuff around that, but we're also getting all the stuff that Evie saw when she was doing her thing, and or when they were together and they were doing something. We're still seeing stuff that doesn't get shared to the group, but Harry saw something, and he may share what he thinks is everything to the group, but we saw more. So as we're going through it, we have a chance to figure stuff out easily before the whole group does, or at least have some sort of inkling. And it's really cool because it's not an easy solution, but they do such a great job of giving you everything you need to figure it out and to come to the conclusion before them if you're really paying attention. And that is so cool. I love the series, but I think what I love most is that as it's progressed, the spy side of this all has come in stronger and stronger in each book. So we are getting your typical murder mystery, or most of them have been murders, I think. And it's not all just in town, which is kind of nice, because then you don't have this tiny little town where everybody's dying off because they got to kill each other. Sometimes it's someone who comes to town. Sometimes they get taken away from town. All the things. So at least we don't have just, this town dying off. How to Survive Visiting a Quiet English Village. We don't have that going on. But we also have this spy thing. There's this Mr. Brown in London who will occasionally help them with things or give them assignments if they need things. Because Evie has this connection with him already. So he's not afraid to ask for help because he's vetted her, she's vetted them, he's like interacted enough to see what's going on, and so he's willing to use them, and it's a whole lot of fun. And then to take it just one step further, you have The Secret Detective Agency by Helena Dixon. This is so much fun. So you have Arthur and Jane. Jane works for the SOE. She is involved in all kinds of clandestine things with them. And Arthur he's a mathematician, cryptologist. He's kind of the Blake from Homefront Sleuths. He's really good at all these kinds of things. He has asthma, terrible asthma, and is highly allergic to cats, can't handle smoke. Well, she has a cat and she smokes. So they don't get along at the beginning. It takes a while. But they learn to recognize each other's strengths. I have read 4 so far. There's another one coming out, I think in September. Not sure. The Crossword Murders. I can't wait to check this one out. But they all of them, the murders that they've been involved with have had something to do with the government, spies, all the things. So there's a strong spy thread, even though you are dealing with mystery. And I think they may have called these cozies. And I would argue that these might be closer to actual cozy than the Homefront Sleuths, because I don't remember as strong of a life or death moment for. I mean, there've been a couple of times in the Homefront Sleuths where I just didn't know if someone was going to make it out. I've not felt like that with these. Probably, now that I think about it, probably because you have 2 people. When you've got that big cast of characters, it'll hurt to kill one. It will. But you're not taking away half of the cast with one. If we have Arthur and Jane and one of those 2 dies, the whole dynamic is gone. Whereas with the other one, it affects the dynamic, but it doesn't take it away. So because of that, they don't get into as strong of a kind of a scary situation. So maybe it's closer to cozy, but there's, because of the spy element, I just don't see it as cozy. I don't check that doesn't check a box for me. It's like, I don't get it. But these have been really, really good. They've been, you can follow the clues. You can see the things. The red herrings are believable in a sense that you fall for them sometimes. They're just, I really, really enjoy the way that they're focusing on respecting each other and working together, rather than this is about turning everything into a romance. Do I think they eventually will? Yeah, I do. I'm just hoping that it takes long enough that when they do, it's earned. Because right now, if they did it in this book, it would have to be one of those cliche moments where someone almost dies and then somebody has to declare undying love to make it believable, and then it would just be annoying. So it's just, it's not there yet. It's just not there. Then we have the Carlisle and Silver, and they call it Cozy Mystery Series. I don't know if I would. They're closer to cozy, like the Secret Detective Agency, and further away from the Homefront Sleuths for sure. But again, we're pushing even more into the spy side of things with this one. So she is Carlisle, and I don't remember her first name. I've only read 3 of them, I think. The 4th one isn't out yet. It's by Jack Catlin. They're really good. But in the first one, for one thing, they're older. And that was one of the things I loved about the Homefront Sleuths. You have a wide age. Alice and Harry are, I'm assuming 60s, 70s, somewhere in there. You have Evie and Nigel, who I'm thinking are definitely in their 30s. You've got Dorothy, and she's got to be getting close to 30, but I think she got married really young, so I don't think she's 30 yet. And then you have Blake, and I have no idea how old he is, but I think he's in his upper 20s to early 30s, somewhere in there. And so there's just this kind of wide range. I would not be actually surprised if Nigel were older. He could be more late 30s, early 40s even, which is kind of cool. There's just a big variety of ages, and I like it. With these, Carlisle and Silver, They are much older. Silver, I can't tell you about him. Silver is an amazing character. Never seen anyone do anything like this before, and I can't explain it because it's a total giveaway for the first book, and that would be terrible. All I got to say is they're so much fun. It is just so much fun. So they are in their 60s, 50s, 60s, somewhere in there. She just has this woman show up at her door saying, you know, my husband died, and if he died, then something is wrong, and I want you to find out what happened. Doesn't make sense. She's never done anything like that in her life. She's a widow herself, and she doesn't know why this person is involved, but she kind of gets caught up in the whole thing, starts trying to figure things out, and meets other people. She eventually meets Silver, and all the things go down. And then she and Silver and her grandson start working together on these other mysteries. And it is so amazing. I can't explain why they're so amazing without giving stuff away. If you want to know, if spoilers don't bother you and you want to email me, shatona@shatona.com, I will tell you why they're so cool. But I'm not going to do it on here and possibly ruin it for somebody, because that would just be cruel, because it is fascinating what Gatlin did here. He did something that if you told me about it, I would assume I wouldn't like it, and I love it because it works, and it works well, and it's just so neat. So those, in my opinion, even though you're dealing with mysteries, there's other stuff going on all the time. So there's like this constant spy thing on the underside of it, and yet not. I mean, part of me feels like this should have been like between Homefront and Secret Detective Agency, and then on the other hand, I'm like, oh, maybe not, because I feel like it's heading that direction more and more and more with each one. And I've only read 3, and the next one comes out. I thought it was September. It's July 27th. Oh, I'm so excited. I am so excited. Okay, I'm fine. This one is Silver and the Wedding of Veils. And I'm just like, oh boy. Okay, I'm fine. Everything's good. Life is grand. Anyway, so again, I struggle with cozy on this one, but not nearly as much as I would with Homefront Sleuths. Because there have been a few dangerous situations, but it's still enough that you could probably pull it off. But the spy thing takes away the cozy for me, which is kind of weird. But anyway, I'm just saying. And finally, to take it, I've done an entire video on this. I will try to link it. But since we've been working towards spies, I figure so many people put the Mrs. Polifax in the mystery genre. And don't get me wrong, there are often mysteries to them, but these are spy stories. I keep coughing and my throat keeps getting worse and worse. We have smoke in the air and it's getting bad, so I'm gonna have to hurry this up. But anyway, the Dorothy Gilman Mrs. Polifax series, there are 14 of them, I think. All but one take place in actual countries. One country she did make up for. There was a reason for it. But all of those countries that she set her books in, she actually went to. I heard an interview with her where she said that she wouldn't write about a country that she hadn't visited. And in them you have Mrs. Polifax. Everybody knows about Mrs. Polifax, but I'll just run over her. She is an older woman who doesn't age properly throughout the series, and you really don't care. But Mrs. Polifax is a widow, lives in New Jersey in an apartment building, and when she realizes that she almost let herself step off the roof because she just didn't care anymore, she goes to see the doctor. The doctor points out that, you know, if you don't keep your mind stimulated, it kind of develops a sort of dry rot, and it's not good. So isn't there something you've always wanted to do? And she's like, I always wanted to be a spy, which he thought was hilarious. But she decided, you know what? Why not? So she goes off to Langley. She gets a letter from her congressman. I mean, she does all these things. She gets there and she's like, where do I volunteer to be a spy? You know, and they put her in a room to talk to somebody else, Mr. Carstairs, who we get to see throughout the series, sees her, goes in. She's exactly what he wants for a courier job, has no idea she's not who he thinks she is, and they decide to send her. So off she goes to Mexico, and all she's supposed to do is pick up a book and come home after a couple weeks in Mexico. That doesn't happen. And it just goes from there. These are part adventure, part spy, and sometimes mystery. So like there's one, I can't remember which one it is. I wonder if I could tell by looking at it. Let's see. Unexpected Mexico. Amazing. I think that's the one in Turkey. Elusive, that's Bulgaria. Palm, that's in Switzerland. Safari, that's in Zambia or whatever. China Station, obviously China. Hong Kong Buddha, obviously Hong Kong. Golden Triangle, we're missing. Oh, it's only showing 9 and then it goes straight to 14. That's why, because I'm like, wait a minute. I can't remember the name of the one. The Second Thief. Okay, yeah. So in the Second Thief, they're in Italy, and I don't know if see, that whole thing isn't really, except it does end up kind of connecting to another book. But in that one, they're trying to figure out what's going on, who is trying to do this, what's going, it's more of a mystery in that one. And I'm trying to see, Second thing, Innocent Tourist, Pursued, Lion Killer. Yeah. So most of hers are more, she's given an assignment, she gets there, everything goes wrong, and she manages to, I love the way she does it, because she's not super brilliant as far as academic intelligence per se. She understands people. She's kind of like Miss Marple meets spy in America versus, like late 20th century America versus, mid-century England. I mean, she's pretty funny. And she just really understands people, and she's a little fearless. Even when she's fearful, she has this part of her that she manages to kick on and say, no, I'm not going to let this win. I'm going to keep going. And she gets put through some pretty brutal stuff. That's why there's nothing cozy whatsoever about these. She comes home traumatized by some of the stuff she goes through, and she should be. But she's strong, and she does, I don't want to say get over it, but she gets through it. So, but they are mostly spy with the occasional mystery. Most of them have a little bit of a mystery involved, but it's almost all, I have an assignment, the assignment goes wrong, how am I going to make it work? And most of them have some sort of little something. It's like, who's doing what? I don't understand. Like, a palm for Mrs. Halifax. That one, it was definitely, that one definitely has some mystery stuff as well as the spy stuff on top of it. So there's just a lot of really interesting things in those, but they are all the way on the other end of the spectrum. So you start off with Maisie Dobbs, who is, she's doing detective work psychologically, and you end up with Mrs. Halifax doing spy work with their occasional detective work, and then you just go spies to mystery, mystery to spies, and they just kind of meet in the middle somewhere around the Homefront sleuths. So anyway, those are some of my favorite, they're not all of my favorite, but those are some of my favorite mystery series that aren't straight up cozies. I wanted them to be mystery series, not just cozy mystery series. I have some cozy mystery series. There's other series I could have included, but this has already taken a long time, and you probably want to actually go read something instead of just listening to me yammer about why I love mysteries. So I'm going to end with that. I love mysteries because my brain likes to think this way. It's how my brain thinks. But I also like seeing how other people's brains work. And I like something that keeps my mind going once I've finished reading the book. And a lot of different books do that. But this is the only genre that does it. It's just what it is. So, as an example, when I was talking last week about The Lord Edgington Investigates, and I realized something as I was describing the story, that's the kind of thing that my brain does for weeks after these things. And it, I will realize, oh, this thing, that thing was so cool that I caught as I was discussing it with you guys. And then I actually emailed him and said, well done. That was brilliant. Yeah, good on you. Because when someone does that well, they need to hear it. We're not as good about catching people doing something right often enough. We're really good about catching the typos, the plot holes, the, anachronisms. I'm really good at those. We're good about catching all the errors. We're not always good about catching the brilliance and then on top of it saying something. And I am determined to become better about taking the time to say, hey, you did great here. This was stellar. And so that was an easy win because man, was that genius. And if he came back and said, you know what? I didn't do that on purpose. I didn't catch that. I'd be like, your brain still did it. It knew what it needed, even if it wasn't conscious, And it wouldn't surprise me because so often the best things that I do are not conscious. It's just all that stuff working in the background and God just going, hey, let's channel this over here and give her a little help. So, but yeah, my best things are usually things that I didn't see coming. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was his. I wouldn't. But I also wouldn't be surprised because of how he does things if this was something he thought of up front and said, I'm just going to build everything around that. And that wouldn't surprise me either because he's just that good. So anyway, some of my favorites. Let's start back at the beginning. There's Jacqueline Winspear, Maisie Dobbs. I'm going to do this so I don't forget. Cherringham by Matthew Costello and Neil Richards. I have to be careful because Neil Dudgeon is the narrator. So Neil Richards and Matthew Costello, the Cherringham series. Heathcliff Lennox is written by Karen Baum-Menuhin. She and Zoe somebody or another also wrote the Miss Busbys, which are the spin-offs. The Lord Edgington Investigates, The Lord Edgington Investigates Abroad, and the Marius Quinn series are all by Benedict Brown, and they all take place in the same world with some of the same characters. Then we have the Lady Hardcastle series by T.E. Kinsey. He also wrote Disney... Something in Diamonds. There's a spin-off series from the Lady Hardcastle. He did 2 mysteries in that. I didn't enjoy them as much. I did enjoy them, but I didn't enjoy them as much as the Lady Hardcastles. And he's only done 2, so I suspect not everybody else loved them. The Homefront Sleuths is Anna Elliott and Charles Veely. They are the father-daughters thing. The Secret Detective series is by Helena Dixon. Silver and Carlisle is by, actually it's Carlisle and Silver, but I always want to flip it. But that is by Jack Gatland. And finally, obviously, and Dorothy Gilman wrote the Mrs. Halifax series. So those are like my favorite series that aren't cozy or straight up, or certainly aren't straight up cozy. And they're clean. There's no smut. There's no foul language in most of them. There'll be occasional sprinkled words in some of them, but not in most of them, except for Mrs. Polifax. Mrs. Polifax has a bit more here and there, usually when John Sebastian Farrell is there. And once in a long while, she will say something which I think is hilarious, because John Sebastian Farrell will usually put a stop to that nonsense. He's like, Duchess. So there is more in those. It's not overdone, and it's usually of the biblical variety, if you will. There were others that I could have included that just had some other element that is more likely to be objected to. And so I left them out, even though I may have enjoyed them. Neville is dreaming. And now he's snoring. I think he's going to start running in his sleep pretty soon. He's kind of doing this thing like horses. Those little feet are trying to get ready to run. They're like, I'm gonna go. I think I should go. Those are mysteries. Hope you love mysteries too. Let me know what series I need to read, because I am always looking for more. Please give me all the mysteries. And yeah, I will see you on Monday with what I have finished. And I hope it's been a lot. I'll let you know. And yeah, I wanted to have like something, and I got nothing. Have a good weekend.